With recent news of a ex-Bethesda employee coming out and questioning if Bethesda should move away from the creation engine and move to Unreal Engine 5, I wanted to break down some of the pros and cons of this decision if Bethesda did move over to Unreal Engine 5, because yes, there are a lot of positives here, but there could be a lot of negatives here as well in regards to a big change to a brand new engine. But before we get into it, thank you guys so much for almost 900 subscribers. Happy New Year. If you guys are new to the channel, you like gaming news, gaming reviews, specifically with RPGs, action adventure type of games, etc., please like and subscribe to the video if you like what you see here. Now, let's get into the content. So first off, why is this even a question? Why is this something that an ex-Bethesda employee is even mentioning? What are the pitfalls of the creation engine? Well, he puts it like this, basically saying you're on a train and you're building the tracks as the train is moving, which obviously is slow progress to where you actually need to be, while the whole time the train is on fire. Basically implying here that the creation engine is specifically continuously being built and tailored for exactly what Bethesda is wanting to do with their games, while also at the same time trying to keep up with the rest of the gaming industry. And by always creating this new tech for the creation engine, they're always a step behind, trying to make that engine as good as the other engines and what other games out there are already doing, which obviously slows the progress on the video games that they're creating in the first place. On top of this, we have seen issues, specifically here recently in Starfield, that a lot of people are putting on the creation engine. Now, it's sometimes hard to say whether the creation engine is the problem or the developers that are utilizing the creation engine aren't utilizing it in the right way. And no, I'm not an expert game developer by any means. I couldn't jump into one of these engines and do literally anything. However, it's no secret that this creation engine has been an issue, at least in some ways. The fact that they didn't even have ladders working until Starfield, and then the ladders in Starfield don't work as well as pretty much any other game that was released a decade ago. Every Bethesda game we've ever seen be created on the creation engine has had immense performance issues. When they tried to do something different and they tried to do a multiplayer experience for Fallout 76, the game was unplayable for almost 6 months. The whole reason why you couldn't just fly to another planet. There were tons of different loading screens within Starfield. Almost anywhere you went in anything you did was also specifically because of limitations with the engine. So there are definitely issues here that you can easily point to the creation engine as saying, yes, it has a lot of limitations for some of the games that Bethesda wants to create, even though it is specifically refined for the games that they do create. It's also no secret that the creation engine doesn't look very good. The graphics that they put out in Starfield are so below what we saw in games released around that time, like Cyberpunk, for example. They were immensely better in almost every way. But if you think a change from the creation engine to any other engine out there is going to magically make the devs think that they need to put a map in the game when it actually launches, or have the UI elements be a lot more user-friendly, that's not going to change. Those are things that the developers themselves just didn't implement correctly with the engine and tools that they did have. So an engine change isn't going to fix those issues. And whether you like it or not, the creation engine does actually have some positives here as well. The creation engine is very good at making those big open world environments that have all of those little tiny things that the player can interact with. It's also one of the most moddable engines out there. I can't think of a lot of Unreal Engine created games that have this level of moddability, and a lot of the people in the modding community tout this engine as one of the easiest engines to use in terms of creating whatever mod they want for their game. And as we know, a lot of fun with the Bethesda games are how many mods come out directly after the release that, number one, fix a lot of the issues that the devs didn't fix themselves within the game, and number two, create amazing content for players to enjoy for years and years and years after the initial release of one of these big Bethesda games. Look at Skyrim for the biggest example. People have made careers reviewing and playing mods on YouTube. And on top of this, this is an engine that Bethesda Bethesda has been using as long as I can remember. They are very well versed, at least the devs who have been there for a long time are very well versed with how to use this engine. Now granted, they have to continuously implement on this engine to keep up with the other ones out there and to keep up with what the gaming sphere is requiring from new games here in 2025, 2026, and so on. But they know how to do this. They can build the engine the way they want to build it for the games they want to build it for or need to build it for. And like I said, they are well versed in how to use the engine and train others on the engine specifically. But on the flip side, this could also be the first pro and one of the biggest reasons why a switch to Unreal Engine 5 would be beneficial for Bethesda. Because if they did bring any new developers into their studio from anywhere, a lot of these people are already well versed into Unreal Engine and Unreal Engine 5 specifically. They wouldn't have to be trained on a brand new engine. The engine also has tons of customability to make sure it's tailored towards the game that Bethesda wants to create. And on top of this, with being able to hire in anybody they really want who will be well versed in an engine before they even get to the studio, it could prove a lot more expedited process for a lot of the games that they're trying to create. Look at the games that are created on Unreal Engine 5, for example. They are beautiful, infinitely more beautiful than any game that Bethesda has pretty much ever created, specifically their most recent one, Starfield. You look at Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. This game was created on Unreal Engine 5. Black Myth Wukong, for example, was created on Unreal Engine 5. These are beautiful games. The capabilities with the graphical fidelity that Unreal Engine 5 has, again, are infinitely better than what we've seen from Bethesda in the past. The problem here is that it's going to be very hard, if not impossible, to create a gigantic open world experience, the big vast landscapes that Bethesda likes to create, while also having all of those small little detailed 3D models that you can interact with within the environment. That's going to be borderline impossible for them to do and still keep the same graphical fidelity as those games I was just talking about if they made the switch. In addition to this, you might lose a decent amount of that modability with any new game that you create, which is a big portion of why people continuously play Bethesda games for years and years and years after release. And most importantly, the amount of time and effort it's going to take Bethesda to switch the games they're currently creating over to the Unreal Engine 5, subsequently creating an engine and developing this engine and tailoring it for any new game that they do want to create, and the games they're currently creating is going to be an immense amount of time and effort. If they ever actually did make this switch, Bethesda is going to really have to look into, is it going to be worth it spending all this time on an engine, or is it going to be more worth it continuously upgrading the current engine, the creation engine that they're using right now to create games? What is actually going to be more efficient for that studio? That answer I definitely don't have. But I do think this is a worthwhile question that Bethesda needs to ask themselves, at least in the near future. But in my personal opinion, I think the creation engine is actually a lot better for Bethesda than a lot of people think it is, because they can customize and have customized and tailored this engine exactly to the games that they create over at Bethesda. On top of this, you do have a lot of familiarity within the studio as a whole with the creation engine. I think a lot of what it does best, like all of those 3D models I was mentioning, just the little cups and mugs that you can play with within the game, a lot of that modability, you might lose that if they do switch over to a new engine, and that's a lot of what people like about Bethesda games. But then again, it's also no secret that it does seem like this engine is falling behind a bit, and the way that they're customizing this engine is slower than just a lot of other studios switching to a new engine and utilizing those features like Unreal Engine 5. We've seen CD Projekt Red switch over to the Unreal Engine. They're going to be making Witcher 4 on that. You now see Halo Studio switching over, and it's obviously an engine that is able to create whatever game that you want to create it with if you're able to have the developers that are able to utilize it in the correct way. And a lot more developers know how to use Unreal Engine 5 than the creation engine. But again, I am by no means an expert game developer. This is just my perspective. I would love to hear what you guys think about this whole situation. Do you think it's beneficial for them to move over? Do you think the creation engine actually suits them extremely well? Please let me know down in the comments. If you guys did like this video, please leave a like on this video and subscribe for more. It helps me out a lot. I will see you guys in the next one. Peace!